I'm not clean to be your bride." The words fell from her lips like stones into still water. The Navajo warrior standing before her didn't flinch, didn't turn away. What he did next would shatter everything she believed about shame and worth. Stay till the end to witness this powerful transformation. Before we dive into the story, click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more heartwarming stories tomorrow. Also, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there right now. Now let's continue with the story. Eliza Farnsworth stood in the dusty street outside the Silver Rose Saloon, her hands trembling as she clutched the single carpetbag that held everything she owned. The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on Prescott's Main Street, and sweat traced lines through the powder on her face. She was 24 years old and felt ancient. The man before her was not what she expected. Ashki Yanaha stood tall and still, his dark eyes taking her in without the hunger she'd learned to recognize in men's faces. He wore a mix of Navajo and white man's clothing, leather vest over a cotton shirt, his long hair tied back with a strip of red cloth. A knife hung at his belt, and his hands, she noticed, were calloused from work, not soft like the gamblers and drifters who'd used her for 3 years. "You're the one who sent for a bride," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't a question. Silas Creed, the man who owned her contract, had made the arrangement. $200 in gold, and she'd belong to someone else. The thought made her stomach turn, but anything was better than the Silver Rose. Ashki nodded once. "I am. Then you should know something before we go any further." Eliza's voice cracked. She'd rehearsed this moment 100 times, but the words still felt like swallowing glass. "I'm not what you think. I'm not pure. I've been used by many men. I'm not clean to be your bride." She waited for disgust to twist his features, waited for him to turn away, to demand his gold back from Creed, to leave her standing in the street. Every man had a breaking point when it came to a woman's past. But Ashki didn't move. He studied her face for a long moment, and something flickered in his eyes that she couldn't name. Not pity, not desire. Something else entirely. "The horse that carried me through battle was once beaten nearly to death by its first owner," he said quietly. "Does that make the horse less worthy of care, less deserving of a good home?" Eliza's breath caught in her throat. "We all carry scars," Ashki continued. "Some on the outside, some within. What matters is what we choose to do with the life we still have." He gestured to the wagon waiting at the edge of town. "The choice is yours. Come with me to my ranch, or stay here. But understand this. If you come as a person, not property. And your past stays in this town." For the first time in 3 years, Eliza felt something she'd forgotten existed. Hope. It was fragile and terrifying, but it was there. She picked up her carpetbag and took a step toward the wagon. The wagon rolled east into territory Eliza had only heard about in whispered warnings. 3 days to Ashki's ranch, he'd said. 3 days alone with a man she didn't know, traveling through land that belonged to neither white settlers nor the Navajo, but existed in the dangerous space between. The first day passed in near silence. Eliza kept her eyes on the horizon, watching red rock formations rise like ancient sentinels. Ashki drove the wagon with easy confidence, his body moving with the rhythm of the wheels over rough ground. When the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, he pulled the horses to a stop near a cluster of juniper trees. "We camp here," he said, jumping down. There's a spring just beyond those rocks. Eliza climbed down stiffly, unsure of what was expected. In her old life, expectations had been brutally clear. Here, nothing made sense. Ashkey built a fire with practiced efficiency, then handed her a canteen. The spring is safe. You can wash if you want privacy. She stared at him. Privacy. The word felt foreign. When she returned, he'd laid out bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire and was roasting something that smelled better than anything she'd eaten in months. Rabbit, she realized. He must have trapped it while she was at the spring. Eat, he said, handing her a portion. Tomorrow's ride is longer. The meat was tender, seasoned with herbs she didn't recognize. Eliza ate slowly, watching him across the flames. Why did you send for a bride? The question escaped before she could stop it. Ashkey was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he spoke, his voice low. I built a good ranch. Strong house, clean water, enough land for cattle and horses. But I live between two worlds and belong fully to neither. My people see me as too close to whites. Whites see only a Navajo. He paused, poking at the fire. A wife from a town wouldn't come willingly to a man like me, so I sent gold instead of asking. And you didn't care what kind of woman you got? I cared that she needed a chance as much as I needed companionship. His eyes met hers. We're both trying to survive in a world that doesn't want us. Seemed like we might understand each other. The second day brought wind that scoured the landscape and stung their eyes. By afternoon, the sky had turned an ominous gray-green. Ashkey urged the horses faster, scanning the horizon. Storm coming. Bad one. They barely made it to a narrow canyon before the sky opened up. Rain fell in sheets, and wind howled through the rocks like something alive and angry. Ashkey pulled the wagon under an overhang, unhitched the horses, and guided them deeper into shelter. Here, he said, pulling Eliza into a shallow cave. We wait it out. They huddled together as the storm raged, the temperature dropping fast. Eliza shivered, and without a word, Ashkey wrapped his blanket around both of them. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, steady and strong. You're afraid of me, he said quietly. I'm afraid of everyone. That's fair. His voice was sad. I know what it's like to be afraid. During the long walk, when soldiers forced my people from our lands, I was 12. I watched my mother die of fever on that march. My father couldn't look at me after, because I have her eyes. He remarried, joined another tribe, and I became a reminder of grief he wanted to forget. Eliza turned slightly to look at him. You were just a child. So were you once, before the world taught you to be afraid. His hand, rough and warm, briefly touched her shoulder. Not demanding, just acknowledging she was there. Maybe we both deserve a chance to remember what it's like to not be afraid. In the storm's fury, pressed close for warmth, Eliza felt something shift inside her chest. This man knew abandonment. He knew what it meant to survive when the people who should have protected you turned away. The rain continued through the night, and neither of them slept. The ranch appeared on the third day like something out of a dream Eliza didn't know she'd been having. Nestled in a protected valley where red cliffs met grassland, the house stood solid and weathered, built from adobe and timber. A corral held several horses, and a small garden showed signs of careful tending. You built all this yourself? Eliza asked, disbelief coloring her voice. Most of it. Some help from my uncle's people before we disagreed on how I should live. Ashkey's jaw tightened. They wanted me to leave white territory, Join the reservation. I refused. He helped her down from the wagon, and Eliza noticed his hands lingered a moment longer than necessary before he pulled away. Inside, the house was sparse but clean. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and hand-woven blankets hung as decoration. Everything had its place, organized with military precision. "The bedroom is yours," Ashki said, gesturing to a door. "I'll sleep out here. But it's your house. You need space to feel safe. I won't take that from you." He set her carpet bag inside the small room, then moved toward the door. "I have work to do before dark. Make yourself comfortable." Eliza stood alone in the bedroom, staring at the bed with its clean linens and woven blanket. She couldn't remember the last time she'd had a room to herself, a door she could close without fear of who might open it. Days fell into rhythm. Ashki rose before dawn to tend the horses and cattle. Eliza discovered she could cook over the fireplace, mend torn leather, and slowly, she began venturing outside to help. He taught her to milk the cow without getting kicked, to collect eggs from the nervous hens, to recognize which plants were useful and which were poison. One afternoon, while Ashki was in the corral working with a young horse, Eliza explored the house more thoroughly. In a wooden trunk, she found a small bundle wrapped in soft leather. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a collection of items, clearly sacred. Turquoise stones, eagle feathers, a small pouch of corn pollen, and a silver bracelet engraved with symbols she didn't understand. "That was my mother's." Eliza spun around, guilt flooding her face. Ashki stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have touched it." He crossed the room and knelt beside her, taking the bundle gently. "She made this bracelet the year before the soldiers came. My father gave it to me after she died, said it would protect me." His thumb traced the engravings. "It didn't protect her. What do the symbols mean?" "They tell a story of the earth, the sky, the 4 sacred mountains, and the path between worlds." He looked at her. "My mother believed some people walk between worlds by choice, others by fate. She said those people carry the heaviest burden because they belong everywhere and nowhere." "Like you," Eliza said softly. "Like us." He placed the bracelet in her hand. "She would have wanted you to have this. She believed broken things could be made whole if given enough care." Eliza's throat tightened. "I don't deserve this." "Deserving has nothing to do with it. You're here. You're trying. That's enough." He stood, offering his hand to help her up. "Come. I want to show you something before sunset." He led her to a rise behind the house where the view stretched for miles. Red rock, green valleys, and endless sky. "This is why I stayed," Ashki said. "This land doesn't judge. It just exists. Strong and patient." He turned to her. "You can be that way too, if you choose." As the sun painted the horizon gold, Eliza slipped the bracelet onto her wrist. For the first time since she could remember, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could stop running from herself. Weeks passed like water smoothing rough stones. Eliza's hands, once soft and painted, grew strong from work. She learned to ride the gentle mare Ashki gave her, to track deer by their prints, to read the sky for coming weather. But more than skills, she was learning to breathe without fear tightening her chest. One evening, as they sat by the fire after supper, Ashki pulled out a worn book. "Can you read this?" he asked, pointing to a passage. Eliza leaned closer. "It's about farming techniques. You want me to teach you?" "I know enough to get by, but the words still confuse me sometimes. The missionary school only taught us basic reading before they decided Indians couldn't be educated. Bitterness crept into his voice. Then we'll practice together. She moved to sit beside him, their shoulders nearly touching. Show me what you know. He read slowly, stumbling over longer words. Eliza corrected gently, and soon they were laughing at his pronunciation of agricultural. The sound of her own laughter startled her. She couldn't remember the last time Joy had felt safe. Your turn, Ashkey said. Tell me something about before Prescott. Eliza's smile faded. There's nothing worth telling. There's always something. You weren't born in that saloon. She was quiet for a long moment, fingers twisting the bracelet on her wrist. I grew up in Kansas. My father had a small farm, and my mother kept a garden that could feed half the county. She taught me to preserve vegetables, to make medicines from herbs. The memories hurt like pressing on a bruise. Then she got fever, died in 3 days. My father started gambling to forget, lost the farm, lost everything. And then he sold me to pay his debts. The words came out flat. Told me I was 16 and pretty enough to be worth something. The brothel owner in Prescott paid him $200, and my father rode away without looking back. Ashkey's hand found hers in the firelight. I'm sorry. Don't be. It made me strong. But her voice cracked on the last word. Being hurt doesn't make you strong. Surviving it does. There's a difference. He squeezed her hand gently. You're stronger than you know. That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She stood on the porch under a sky full of stars, wearing one of Ashkey's shirts over her nightdress. She heard him approach before she saw him. Can't sleep either? He asked. Too quiet. I'm used to noise, shouting, piano music. She wrapped her arms around herself. The silence makes me think too much. Ashkey stepped beside her, close enough that she could feel his warmth. What do you think about? That I don't know how to be the person you seem to think I am. I don't think you're anyone except exactly who you are. He turned to face her. And that's someone worth knowing. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before lightning strikes. Eliza's heart hammered as she looked up at him. In the starlight, his face was both strong and gentle, scarred by life, but not hardened by it. Ashkey, she whispered. He cupped her face with one hand, his thumb brushing her cheek. Tell me to stop. She didn't. Instead, she rose on her toes and kissed him. It was nothing like the rough, demanding kisses she'd endured. This was soft, questioning, as if he was asking permission with every movement. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Eliza rested her forehead against his chest. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. His arms wrapped around her, holding her like something precious. But maybe we can be scared together. Under the endless Arizona sky, 2 wounded souls found the courage to stop running from connection. The riders appeared 3 weeks later, dust rising behind their horses like a warning. Eliza was hanging laundry when she spotted them, and her blood turned to ice. She recognized the lead horse before she saw the man's face. Ashkey! Her scream brought him running from the barn, rifle already in hand. 3 men reined up 30 yards from the house. The one in front wore a black suit despite the heat, his face fleshy and cruel. Silas Creed, the man who'd owned her contract, who'd beaten girls for crying, who'd made a fortune trading in human misery. Well now, Creed called out, his voice oily. Looks like my property is doing well out here. Ashkey stepped in front of Eliza, his rifle held loose but ready. You got paid. 200 in gold. We have no business. See, That's where you're wrong, Indian. Creed spat the last word like poison. That gold was only half the agreed price. You still owe me 200 more, or I take back what's mine. You're lying, Eliza said, her voice shaking. I heard the deal. 200, full payment. Creed smiled, showing yellow teeth. Your word against mine, darling. And who's the law going to believe? A savage and a whore, or a respected businessman? The two men flanking Creed laughed. One had a scar running down his face. The other wore a deputy's badge that looked freshly bought. You need to leave, Ashkey said quietly. Now. Or what? You'll shoot us? Creed gestured to the badge. That'd be murder of a lawman. They'd hang you before sunset. Eliza felt panic rising in her throat. She'd been so stupid to think she could escape. Men like Creed always won. They owned the law, owned the power, owned everything. I'll go back, she heard herself say. Just leave him alone. No, Ashkey's voice was steel. He didn't take his eyes off Creed. She's not going anywhere. The scarred man reached for his gun. What happened next was faster than Eliza could follow. Ashkey moved like water, like wind, covering the distance in 3 strides. He struck the scarred man's wrist with the rifle butt, and the gun went flying. A knee to the stomach, and the man was on the ground gasping. The fake deputy drew, but Ashkey was already there, disarming him with brutal efficiency. The rifle came up, barrel pointed at Creed's chest. Here's what's going to happen, Ashkey said, his voice deadly calm. You're going to ride away. You're going to forget this place exists. And if you ever come back, if you ever send anyone else, I will make you wish the Navajo had found you on the long walk instead of me. Creed's face went purple with rage. You think this is over? I'll be back with real law, with a posse. I'll see you hang and her back where she belongs. Then come back. Ashkey lowered the rifle slightly. But understand something. I've killed men before. White men who hurt my people. I didn't lose sleep over it then, and I won't lose sleep over you. The 2 hired men scrambled back onto their horses. Creed stared at Ashkey for a long moment, hatred burning in his eyes, before finally turning his horse. This ain't finished, he called back. As the dust settled, Eliza collapsed to her knees, shaking. Ashkey knelt beside her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. He'll come back, she whispered. With more men. They'll kill you. Let him try. Ashkey lifted her chin so their eyes met. I told you, you're not property. That choice is done, and I protect what's mine. I'm not worth dying for. That's not your decision to make. He pulled her close. But we're not facing this alone. I know people who understand what it means to fight for what matters. Eliza realized he was planning something dangerous. Ashkey left before dawn, telling Eliza to keep the rifle close and trust no one. He returned at sunset with 6 riders, their horses moving silent as shadows across the valley. Eliza watched from the porch, her heart racing as they approached. The man leading them was older, his face carved by sun and hardship, gray streaking his long hair. He wore traditional clothing, silver and turquoise at his throat, and carried himself with the bearing of someone who'd commanded respect his entire life. This is Hastien Tso, Ashkey said. My mother's brother, my uncle. The older man studied Eliza with eyes that missed nothing. She resisted the urge to look away, to hide. After a long moment, he spoke in Navajo, the words flowing like water over stone. Ashkey responded in the same language, gesturing toward her. He wants to know if you chose this life, or if my nephew forced you. Ashkey translated. Eliza stepped forward, meeting Hastien Tso's gaze directly. I chose. Your nephew gave me the first real choice I've had in years. Another exchange in Navajo, faster this time. Then Hastien Tso nodded once and dismounted. The other warriors followed, and suddenly the small ranch felt crowded with dangerous men. Inside, Eliza served what food she had, stretched thin to feed 8 people. An older woman had come with them, her face weathered but kind. She helped Eliza prepare the meal, showing her how to properly make fry bread, speaking in halting English mixed with Navajo. I am Azza Ayoi, the woman said, her hands quick and sure with the dough. My name means very old woman. I earned it by surviving what should have killed me. What happened? Eliza asked quietly. Soldiers, during the long walk. Things I will not speak of in this house. Her hand stilled. But I survived. Like you survived. That makes us strong, not broken. Around the fire after the meal, Hastien Tso spoke through Ashki. My nephew tells me white men come to take you like property. This angers me, not because you are Navajo, but because treating any woman this way offends the balance of the world. I don't want to bring war to your people, Eliza said. The old warrior smiled grimly. The war came long ago. We lost our land, our freedom, our children to their schools, but we did not lose our honor. He looked at the other warriors. These men fight not for land or revenge. We fight because the white man creed treats women as cattle. This we cannot allow, even if the woman is Bilagana. White woman, Ashki translated the word softly. We will help defend this place, Hastien Tso continued. But understand, girl, if you stand with my nephew, you stand between 2 worlds. The whites will hate you for choosing a Navajo. My people will question your presence. You must be strong enough to bear this weight. Eliza thought of everything she'd endured. Every night she'd survived at the Silver Rose. Every moment she'd wanted to stop existing, but kept breathing anyway. She touched the bracelet on her wrist. I've been hated for less. At least now I'm choosing who I stand beside. Azza Ayoi made a sound of approval. She spoke rapid Navajo to Hastien Tso, who listened and then laughed, a sound like rocks rolling downhill. She says your spirit is strong, like desert plants. Those who look soft but have roots deeper than anyone knows. He stood, signaling to his warriors. We will position ourselves in the rocks above your ranch. When the white man returns, he will find more than he bargained for. That night, as Navajo warriors took positions around the property, Eliza stood with Ashki under the stars. They came for you, she said, wonder in her voice. They came because sometimes honor matters more than old grudges. He took her hand, and because they recognize strength when they see it. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. He pulled her close, but you're not alone anymore. They came at dawn, just as the sky began to bleed pink and gold. Eliza was in the kitchen when she heard the thunder of hooves. Through the window, she counted 8 riders, maybe more. Creed had brought an army. Ashki appeared beside her, his face calm, but his eyes sharp. Stay inside. No matter what happens, stay down. I won't hide while you die for me. You won't. But I need to know you're safe to fight properly. He kissed her hard and fast. Trust me. The riders formed a semicircle in front of the house. Creed sat his horse in the center, flanked by hired guns, and one man wearing a territorial marshal's badge that actually looked official. The marshal was young, probably bought like the others, but the badge gave Creed what he wanted, the illusion of law. Ashki Yanaha, the marshal called out. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Creed to recover stolen property and arrest you for kidnapping." Ashki stepped onto the porch, rifle held loosely. No property was stolen. No kidnapping occurred. You're wasting your time. That's for a judge to decide. Now hand over the woman and come peacefully, or we'll take you both by force. Creed's smile was ugly. "Told you I'd be back, Indian. Should have listened." "I did listen," Ashki's voice carried across the yard. "I also prepared." At his signal, Navajo warriors rose from positions in the rocks above, from behind the barn, from the ridge beyond the corral. Suddenly, Creed's 8 men were surrounded by twice their number, all armed, all silent as death. The hired guns reached for weapons, but froze when Hastien So stepped into view, his rifle aimed directly at the marshal. "This is an illegal gathering of hostiles," the marshal stammered, fear cracking his voice. "I'll have the army here by nightfall. Do it," Hastien So said in clear English. "Bring the army. Tell them a white man tried to enslave a woman, and Navajo warriors defended her honor. See which side history remembers kindly." Creed's face went purple with rage. "She's a whore. She has no honor to defend." The words hit Eliza like a physical blow. Before she could stop herself, she stepped onto the porch beside Ashki. "I was a woman trying to survive in a world controlled by men like you. That doesn't make me property." "Get back inside," Creed snarled, reaching for his gun. Everything happened at once. The gun cleared leather, the barrel swinging toward Ashki. Eliza saw it happening as if time had slowed. She threw herself forward, desperate to shield him. The gunshot cracked across the valley, and fire tore through her shoulder. She hit the ground hard, blood spreading warm and fast across her shirt. Through the haze of pain, she heard chaos. Ashki roaring her name, warriors surging forward, horses screaming. Another gunshot, then silence, so sudden it rang in her ears. Strong hands lifted her, and she looked up into Ashki's face. His expression was terrified and furious all at once. "Why did you do that?" he demanded, pressing cloth to her shoulder. "You said you protect what's yours." Blood filled her mouth, making speech difficult. Works both ways. Around them, the scene had transformed. Creed's men were on the ground, disarmed, hands raised in surrender. The marshal was shouting about jurisdiction and law, but Hastien So had his rifle pressed to the man's spine. Creed himself was being dragged toward his horse by 2 warriors, his face bloodied, his expensive suit torn. "If I ever see you again," Ashki called out, his voice deadly calm despite the blood on his hands, "I will finish what we started today. Take your men and never come back." The marshal, realizing he'd lost control of the situation entirely, spurred his horse and fled. Creed's men followed, dragging their boss with them. Astza Ayoi knelt beside Eliza, her weathered hands examining the wound. She spoke in rapid Navajo, and Ashki translated through gritted teeth. "The bullet went through. You'll live, but it's going to hurt." Eliza tried to smile. "I've survived worse." "Don't do that again," Ashki whispered, his forehead touching hers. "Don't ever risk yourself for me." Too late. Already did. Pain became Eliza's world for 3 days. Astza Ayoi stayed at the ranch, applying poultices that smelled of sage and earth, changing bandages, forcing bitter teas down Eliza's throat. The old woman worked with hands that had healed countless wounds, speaking softly in Navajo while Eliza drifted between sleep and waking. On the 4th morning, Eliza woke to find the pain had dulled to a manageable ache. Astza Ayoi sat beside the bed, grinding herbs in a stone bowl. You heal fast, the old woman said. Strong. Blood. Doesn't feel strong. Eliza tried to sit up and gasped as her shoulder protested. Strength isn't about not feeling pain. It's about surviving it. Azza Ayoe helped her lean against the pillows. You took a bullet for my nephew. That tells me everything about your heart. I didn't think. I just moved. Exactly. Your body knew what your mind was still learning. You love him. It wasn't a question. Eliza's throat tightened. I don't know how to love someone properly. Everything I've known about men has been brutal. The old woman was quiet for a moment, her hand stilling on the herbs. During the long walk, soldiers did things to Navajo women. Terrible things. Some women died from it. Some died by their own hands after. But some of us survived. She met Eliza's eyes. We survived because we understood something important. What was done to us was not about us. It was about men with power and no honor. Our worth was never in their hands. How do you stop feeling dirty? You don't stop feeling it. You learn that dirt washes away, but your spirit stays whole if you choose to keep it whole. Azza Ayoe touched Eliza's uninjured hand. In Navajo way, we believe in balance. Hojho, beauty, harmony, balance in all things. You were pushed out of balance by cruel men. Now you must find your way back, not alone, with someone who sees your worth. That afternoon, Ashki helped Eliza walk outside for the first time. The sun felt like a blessing on her face, warm and clean. They sat together on the porch, her good shoulder pressed against his side. I thought I'd lost you, he said quietly. When I saw you fall, I thought. His voice broke. I'm here. I'm alive. Because you're stubborn and brave and completely reckless. He turned to face her, taking both her hands carefully. Eliza, I need to say something. I sent for a bride because I was lonely. Because I thought companionship would be enough, but it's not companionship I feel anymore. Her heart hammered against her ribs. What do you feel? I love you. I love your strength, your courage, the way you fought to survive everything that tried to break you. I love who you are, not who you think you should be. He cupped her face gently. And I want you to be my wife, not because I paid gold, but because I choose you, and I want you to choose me. Tears spilled down Eliza's cheeks. I'm broken. So am I. But maybe two broken people can build something whole together. I don't know how to be a proper wife. Then we'll figure it out together. No rules, no expectations. Just us, building a life that makes sense to us. He wiped her tears with his thumb. Will you marry me? Really marry me? Not as an arrangement, but as a choice? Eliza thought about the woman she'd been in Prescott, hollow and hopeless. She thought about the journey here, the terror and uncertainty. She thought about this man who'd defended her, fought for her, seen her worth when she couldn't see it herself. Yes, she whispered. I choose you. I choose this life. I choose us. He kissed her then, soft and deep, and it felt like coming home to a place she'd never known existed. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying. We'll do it properly, Ashki said. Navajo ceremony. My uncle will officiate. My people will witness. You'll be part of my family, my tribe, my world. I'd like that. Eliza rested her head on his shoulder. I'd like that very much. 2 weeks later, when Eliza's shoulder had healed enough to move freely, they prepared for the ceremony. Navajo families arrived throughout the morning, bringing food, blankets, gifts. Eliza watched from the porch as the small ranch transformed into something she'd never imagined. A place of celebration, a place of belonging. Astza Ayoi helped her dress in traditional clothing, a velvet blouse the color of deep turquoise, and a long skirt with silver buttons. The old woman braided Eliza's hair, weaving in turquoise beads and white shell. "You look like you belong to the land now," Astza Ayoi said, stepping back to admire her work. Not white, not Navajo, but something in between. Something new. "I'm scared," Eliza admitted. "What if they don't accept me?" "They are here, aren't they? That is acceptance enough. The rest you must earn through time and respect." She placed a necklace of silver and turquoise around Eliza's neck. "This belonged to Ashki's mother. She would want you to wear it today." The ceremony took place outside as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Hastien Tso stood before them in full ceremonial dress, his voice strong as he spoke the traditional words. Eliza didn't understand all of the Navajo, but Ashki had taught her enough to follow the meaning. They shared corn mush from a wedding basket, feeding each other to symbolize the blending of their lives. Corn pollen was blessed in the 4 directions, and smoke from burning sage carried prayers to the sky. When it came time for Eliza to speak, she did so in careful Navajo, the words Astza Ayoi had taught her. "I come to this family with respect and gratitude. I will honor the ways of the Diné. I will walk in beauty with this man, my husband, all the days of my life." Her pronunciation was rough, her accent thick, but the gathered people murmured approval. An older warrior, one who'd fought at the ranch, called out something that made others laugh. Ashki translated, smiling. "He says any woman brave enough to take a bullet and foolish enough to learn our impossible language deserves to be welcomed." After the ceremony, there was food and music. Women approached Eliza, some curious, some cautious, but all acknowledging her presence. They touched the silver at her throat, examined the bracelet on her wrist, asked questions in broken English mixed with Navajo. One young mother handed Eliza her baby, watching carefully as Eliza cradled the child. The woman spoke to Astza Ayoi, who translated. "She says you have gentle hands, healing hands. She asks if you will help when her second child comes in winter." Eliza looked at the tiny face in her arms, so perfect and innocent. "I would be honored." As darkness fell and fires lit the valley, Hastien Tso approached Eliza and Ashki, where they sat together, watching the celebration. "My nephew chose well," the old warrior said. "You fought for him when you could have run. You chose to learn our ways when you could have refused. This shows character." He placed a hand on Ashki's shoulder. "Your mother would be proud of the man you've become and the woman you've chosen." That night, after the guests had departed and quiet returned to the ranch, Ashki led Eliza inside. He lit candles, and in their soft glow, she saw the bedroom had been transformed. New blankets, fresh flowers, everything prepared with care. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. Eliza thought about everything that had led to this moment. The shame, the fear, the desperate hope that maybe she could be more than her past. She looked at this man who'd seen her worth when she couldn't, who'd fought for her, who'd given her a home and a family and a future. "I'm ready," she said, taking his hand. "I'm finally ready." 6 months passed like a dream Eliza kept expecting to end. But it didn't end. It grew richer, deeper, more real with each day. The ranch thrived under their combined efforts. Eliza learned to work leather, to preserve meat for winter, to identify medicinal plants. She helped birth the young mother's second child, a healthy boy who screamed his way into the world while Eliza held his mother's hand and spoke soothing words in broken Navajo. Her belly had begun to round. barely noticeable yet, but there. A child growing inside her, conceived in love instead of violence. The difference felt miraculous. One afternoon, as spring brought new green to the valley, a young woman appeared at their door. She was maybe 17, her face bruised, her dress torn, terror in every line of her body. "Please," she gasped. "They're following me. The men from the mining camp. They said I belonged to them because I owed money for food." Eliza didn't hesitate. "Come inside. You're safe here." Ashki appeared from the barn, took one look at the situation, and began preparing. He sent word to Hastien So, positioned himself with his rifle, made it clear that anyone who came for this girl would face the same response Creed had. No one came. The miners knew better now. Stories had spread about the Navajo warrior and his white wife, who protected those who had nowhere else to go. The girl stayed. Her name was Sarah, and she was running from a debt she'd inherited when her father died. Over the following weeks, she helped with chores, learned to ride, slowly began to heal the way Eliza had. "You didn't have to take me in," Sarah said one evening as they prepared supper together. "Yes, I did." Eliza touched her growing belly. "Someone gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. Now it's my turn to do the same." That night, standing on the porch with Ashki's arms wrapped around her from behind, his hands resting on the swell of their child, Eliza looked out at the land that had become home. The setting sun painted everything in gold and shadow, beautiful and harsh and honest. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Taking a chance on a woman from a brothel?" "Every day," he said, and she felt her heart drop until he continued. "I regret that you suffered before we found each other. I regret every moment you believed you were worthless. But bringing you here? Choosing you? Never." Eliza turned in his arms to face him. "I was so ashamed that day in Prescott. I whispered that I wasn't clean enough to be your bride, and I believed it with everything in me. And what do you believe now?" She thought about the woman she'd been, hollow and hopeless, convinced her past had destroyed any chance at a real life. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the pain and fear and gradual, terrifying hope. She thought about the family she'd found, the community that had welcomed her, the child growing inside her, and this man who'd seen her worth before she could. "I believe that being clean was never about what happened to me. It was about what I chose to do after." She pressed her forehead to his. "I believe I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, with exactly who I'm supposed to be with, and I believe our child will grow up knowing that love is stronger than shame, that family is what you build, and that everyone deserves a second chance. That's a good belief to pass on," Ashki said softly. As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Eliza Yanaha stood in her husband's arms on the porch of their home, Sarah safely inside preparing for her own new beginning, and felt something she'd thought lost forever. Peace, the kind that comes from knowing you've survived everything meant to break you and came out stronger on the other side. The warrior who refused to see her as dirty had given her more than a home. He'd given her back herself. If this story touched your heart, click that like button and subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, I have another powerful tale of courage and redemption that you won't want to miss. Stories like these remind us that our past doesn't define our future, and that love can heal even the deepest wounds. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.